2021 has finally arrived, and 6 days in, we have an insurrection.
What was your feeling in that moment?
We didn't know what was going to happen. We thought we might have to fight for our lives.
What do your Republican colleagues say?
They feared for their safety and their political career.
What would you want people to be able to say about Hakeem Jeffries one day?
Never get ahead of yourself, boys. Do the job that's in front of you.
Hey family, welcome to the Carlos Watson Show. Now look, before I set up today's interview, let's serve up a little Walk a Mile in My Shoes trivia, sponsored by my friends at Cariuma. Now look, I'm gonna give you a little piece of trivia. I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Ready? Here we go. Before he became US president, he was in the Navy, had been trained in nuclear energy with atomic subs, and as president, he went on to sign laws addressing energy conservation, federal mine safety standards, and control of pesticides. He's also known as the greenest president. Who am I talking about? We'll give you the answer in just a bit. Hey, but first, we have the man who may become the next Speaker of the House in the House. That's right, I'm talking about Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from New York. Now, everybody and their brother knows that he could be the one to succeed Nancy Pelosi if she steps down at the end of this term. You don't want to miss what he has to say. A completely interesting guy. We talked about a wide range of things, including the Capitol riot. Hey, Congressman.
How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
You guys have already had, it feels like, a decade's worth in the first 45 days alone.
Yeah, it's incredible. The pace was intense over the last 4 years, and then 2020 got more intense, and then I thought, you know what? 2021 has finally arrived, and 6 days in, we have an insurrection.
A violent mob stormed and seized the U.S. Capitol today.
Did you have a sense that that was going to happen?
Some members had raised security concerns, and whenever there's an event and a protest in a volatile situation, there are always some issues, and, we knew there would be tension, but we didn't expect that it would result in a violent attack on the Capitol.
Wow. And where were you when all that was going down?
I was actually on the House floor.
What was your feeling in that moment?
Everybody stay down! Sit down!
It was surreal. The first moment where you realize something was happening is that I saw the speaker being pulled by her security team from the podium with great urgency.
Right.
And then the sergeant at arms got up, interrupted the debate, said that protesters have breached the Capitol. They're on the second floor. They're heading toward the House chamber. Secure the gas masks that are underneath your seats. It was at that moment that I realized this was a real different situation than I've ever encountered in life, because I've seen a lot growing up in central Brooklyn in the middle of the crack cocaine epidemic. Never have I been asked to secure a gas mask. We didn't know what was going to happen.
And where was your mindset? And I'm sorry, I hope I'm not causing any trauma and asking you to relive this, but as you said, it is such a historic thing.
Well, it was interesting because seated right behind me was Colin Allred. He's a second-term member of the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, before Colin Allred got to Congress, he played linebacker in the NFL for the Tennessee Titans for 5 years. Now, Carlos, if you ever find yourself in the middle of a violent insurrection, it's a good thing to have a former NFL linebacker right behind you. And so Colin says to me, I don't know about you, Hakeem, but I'm not going out without a fight. Next thing you know, Colin's jacket came off. So I took my jacket off, and I knew that that was the right thing to do because I looked over and Ruben Gallego from Arizona had his jacket off, and he's a former Marine. So we were just like, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And we thought we might have to fight for our lives.
This election were overturned by mere allegations from the losing side, our democracy would enter a death spiral.
What do your Republican colleagues say now? Are they saying this was crazy? Are they saying it just is what it is? Like, what do they say when it's quiet time and people that you're friendly with?
Well, there are some who recognize the insanity of it all, a few of whom actually voted to impeach President Trump, which was an act of courage in my view because of the stranglehold that the former president has on the Republican Party.
He's the legitimate president of the United States.
There are others who probably wanted to vote to impeach Donald Trump, but it was clear they feared for their safety and their political career. And so they didn't do what I believe they were privately inclined to do. And then there's a group of Republicans who have bought into Trumpism and the big lie that he actually won an election that he didn't. Hook, line, and sinker.
What does it say to the nearly half the country that believes this election was rigged if we vote not even to consider the claims?
Do you have friends who are part of that last group?
You know, to be honest, that's not a group that I really associate myself with. And, you know, those that I don't really have any relationships with are the ones that voted in a way that I thought was inconsistent with our constitutional responsibility. So I haven't gotten a lot of visibility and insight into their thinking. And to be honest, Carlos, one of the things that's been interesting for us, and we're grappling with this as Democrats now, you know, who embrace the notion of trying to find common ground whenever and wherever possible, is how do we work with these people who provided aid and comfort to a violent insurrection? And I don't have the answer right now.
Congressman, how did you get into politics? Were you like Bill Clinton, someone where politics was always in your blood, you were always thinking about it, and you eventually got the opportunity to do it? Or how did you end up in politics?
When I was a student at Binghamton University and began to get involved in activism, and in my final year served on the executive board of the Black Student Union. And in the spring of my senior year, turned on a TV and LA was in flames.
LAPD has just told me that they have ordered all police helicopters and all LAPD cruisers out of this area.
And I'm trying to figure out, why is LA in flames? And then, of course, it was because the all-white jury in the trial of 4 officers who had beaten brutally Rodney King acquitted them all. And of course, that led to the LA uprising. I remember thinking at that point in time and in the next few days, I want to go to law school. And I want to use my law degree after I finish graduate school to try to advance the cause of racial and social justice. As a young lawyer, after practicing for a few years, decided to run for a seat in the New York State Assembly. I lost my first 2 races, but I learned that a knockdown is different than a knockout. Won a seat in the New York State Assembly that 3rd time, and then the rest has been history.
Man, I love that story, and I love the knockdown versus knockout. Go back in time and talk to that young fella, young Hakeem. What's going to surprise him about politics?
There are issues where you think there will never be agreement, but sometimes you'll realize that there actually is the emergence of what I now refer to as a coalition of the unusual suspects.
Okay.
Who come together on an issue that shocks the conscience of the American people. And criminal justice reform has now become that issue.
President Trump showcasing what would be the most sweeping prison reform agreement in decades and one of the biggest bipartisan laws of his administration.
You know, Doug Collins, a conservative Republican from rural Georgia, and myself, a progressive Democrat from the People's Republic of Brooklyn, come together on the First Step Act to strike a devastating blow against mass incarceration and address overcriminalization. And we get the bill somehow to the president's desk, and Donald Trump, of all people, signs it into law with the encouragement of his daughter and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. In 1992 or 1994, that kind of coalition could have never been imagined.
Who gives you energy? Who helps you stay strong when you start to wobble internally, even if not externally? Who or what gives you a fresh wind, gives you courage?
Well, I'm inspired by the people that I'm privileged to represent back home in Brooklyn, on the streets, in the neighborhood, in the churches. You know, I grew up in the Black Baptist church, and so I drew a lot of inspiration, you know, from the church-going people that I spend time with, whether it's a Baptist church, Catholic church, Methodist church. Wherever I am, the sentiment is the same. You know, I don't believe he brought us this far to leave us.
If at some point in the future you were blessed to get to become speaker, what would you want to be true? What would you want people to be able to say about the speakership of Hakeem Jeffries one day?
Well, listen, I'm fortunate enough to represent the people of the 8th Congressional District and now to serve as the chairman. So I don't want to get out ahead of myself. And that's what my grandmother used to tell me and my younger brother Hassan. Never get ahead of yourself, boys. do the job that's in front of you. I've got great respect for Speaker Pelosi. I nominated her twice, and we'll see what the future brings. But I just think that for as long as I'm able to serve, I want to say at the end of my tenure that I was able to get something done for the people that I'm privileged to represent.
Let me do something I call rapid fire. Your favorite athlete of all time?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Interesting. That's controversial for a New Yorker, but okay. Your favorite book of all time?
I'd say Faces at the Bottom of the Well, which is a book by a law professor, Derek Bell, who was a critical race scholar who thought a lot about the intersection between the law, racism, and America.
Which superhero are you? If this is the Hall of Justice, who are you?
I'm gonna go with Batman.
What's your karaoke song?
So many Biggie songs that I could go with, but I'd say Sky's the Limit.
Best advice you've ever gotten or given about love?
Grandma. She would always say to my brother and I, she would tell us the story of Cain and Abel, and that your brothers, you to look after each other and to love each other, and don't let the passions of the moment overwhelm you into doing something that you will regret for the rest of your life.
Congressman Jeffries, what a pleasure. I'm very grateful that you gave me a little bit of your time today. Thank you.
Well, Carlos, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share with you and your many viewers.
Take care. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Clearly has a bright future. I love what he said about getting knocked down but not getting knocked out. Really appreciate how close he stayed to his constituents. Be interesting to see if he does become Speaker of the House. Will he represent kind of incremental change or really kind of significant change from where Speaker Pelosi has led her party? All right, listen, before we go, it's time to reveal the answer to our Curiuma trivia question. Now again, here's trivia from the top of the show. Before he became U.S. president, he was in the Navy. In fact, he had trained in nuclear energy with atomic subs. As president, he went on to sign laws addressing energy conservation, federal mine safety standards, even control of pesticides. He's also known as the greenest president. The answer, of course, I'm talking about the Peanut Man, Jimmy Carter out of Georgia, upset winner back in '76. Hey, thanks for playing. Thanks to our friends at Curiuma for the shoes and the trivia. And like that, we're out. We're out of time, but you can subscribe. You can get more. You can listen to the podcast. I'll see you on the other side.